So someone's doing a pilot?
This is it. You're doing the pilot.
Oh, I am doing the pilot. Yeah.
Let's toast.
Let's do it.
All right.
Actually, I prepared.
Oh,
I don't know how
look
long.
at you.
You know?
Yeah, so
If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Okay.
that's true. That's true. I'm not lacking.
Okay, girl. Bebeo, I
I'm a
see
bowl
you.
person. I'm terrible at rolling joints.
This is my sister Vanessa. She taught me for years.
Nice. How long have you been smoking marijuana for?
Consistently since about 2016. And that's because I developed extreme anxiety working in corporate America.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I developed extreme anxiety working in the cannabis industry.
Oh, God. When did you start smoking?
Huh?
When did you start?
As a daily user,
Yeah.
2010.
That's amazing.
Been a while.
These kinds of events, I like to do them all the time because there's so much misinformation. And every time I get to step into a platform and speak truth, I feel like I'm living my purpose.
Well, that's why I'm excited about this. So I don't know the story you're about to tell. I went back and forth. I was like, should I look it up? Should I not look it up? And I went back and forth and I decided not to look up the story you're going to tell. So you're telling it to me for the first time.
Great. And stop me anytime you have questions, pause it. Cause like, I like when things are interactive.
So let's talk about who are the main characters, first of all.
Boom. So let me pull up my sheet so I don't remember. Forget. So the main character obviously is Billie Holiday, right? Mm-hmm. Her name is actually Eleanor Flanagan Ho. I don't know how to pronounce Hough. Hugh? Okay. Yeah. See, the American language has traps for immigrants like me, but I
don't even know how English works most of the time.
So we have Billie Holiday. We have Jimmy Fletcher. Jimmy Fletcher was one of her lovers who was used to take her down by the FBI. Louis McKay, her husband, also. Ooh. And then we have George White, who is a horrible man. Dun, dun, dun. And then we cannot forget Harry Anslinger. And
I don't know who he is.
We all know who Harry Anslinger is. So these are the characters. Remember those names. And we're gonna start getting into this real quick. Okay. So what's happening in 1915, which is the year of Billie Holiday's birth? She was born April 7th, 1915. What was happening? We were in the World War, right? Mm-hmm. Making our way towards the Depression. Huh?
First World
War I, making our way towards Depression. And who comes on? Lady Day is born. And she's ushered into this planet, but she does not have the best life, okay? It's important for us to know who she is, that she went through a lot of trauma. I don't like to stop on the trauma because I don't want that to be the main thing, but let's just say, I mean, just for this, she went through sexual assault, ended up being sent to a home for girls with, it was a religious home. She was locked in a room with a dead body because she was misbehaving. And so she is somebody who has experienced a lot of trauma. Okay. Yeah. There's even in her autobiography, and we need to know that because I want you guys to see what her mind was. In her autobiography, which we've been told to take with a grain of salt because she was on a lot of drugs when she wrote it, she said that she started prostituting herself when she worked in a brothel with her mother. This is a woman who experienced, so for her to get to that point of participating in that brothel, she was preceded by sexual assault in her earlier life as well. So mm-hmm. This is Billie Holiday, the woman who gave us the most emotionally charged, sad, depressed music. The pain was real. It was actually a reflection of her own life. But I don't want y'all to think she was just a sad woman. She was actually strong, vivacious. In 1915, people told her she had a potty mouth. Every other word was motherfucking this, motherfucking that. And she didn't play. I think there was one story where the first time someone met her, they saw her throwing a bottle at somebody. One more story to show you how her life was. She was performing and she felt as if the crowd was not appreciating what she was putting down. And she wasn't wearing any underwear at the time. She turned around, flashed them, and then got off because they weren't they weren't valuing the performance that she was giving. So this is this kind of woman.
Do you not know who I am? That's what she's saying.
You know what I'm saying? So I was like, you can't play with her.
No.
Okay. So she's born in 1915, and people are probably asking, how did she end up as a target for the Federal Bureau of Narcotics? It's just what this jazz singer. Okay, so we're in the night. So she grew up in the jazz scene. Her dad was a musician. She was in Baltimore, and I don't know if you know, but jazz and marijuana and drugs went hand in hand. And during this time, what there was the prohibition on alcohol, and the Federal Bureau, the Treasury was responsible for overseeing the prohibition. And there was a Bureau of Prohibition that was ran by Harry Anslinger. So during this time, prohibition is happening. She's singing in bars. She's becoming larger in notoriety. And they start obviously trying to knock down the jazz bars. Mm-hmm. Who starts knocking them down? Harry Anslinger. Harry Anslinger is the person who became the head of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics. At the time, he despised jazz music because he was a starch racist, and he thought that jazz music was so erratic, the rhythm was so off, that he felt it could only be the product of madness, you know? Only ridiculously drug-crazed people could play jazz. In addition, we all know Harry Anslinger hated marijuana, right? Because he used marijuana as a tool to maintain the Federal Bureau of Narcotics. Because remember when I just talked about there was the prohibition on alcohol? Mm-hmm. When alcohol became legalized, there were no more jobs available for the police officers. And he feared, like, man, what the hell am I going to do? So he starts going after marijuana among many other reasons, okay? So he starts going after marijuana, going after drug users, and he starts going after jazz music and jazz musicians. Every time he goes after the jazz bars, the black musicians, they never snitch on each other. And if they ever get one, they all get together and bail him out. And because of that solidarity, the Treasury's office called Anslinger up, and they said, Anslinger, you keep trying to lock down these jazz bars, but you're wasting our money. These people are they have too much solidarity. And so he shut it down. He had to stop going after the jazz bars. But in 1939 in New York City, Billie Holiday had the audacity to sing a song called Strange Fruit. Have you heard of the song?
No, but I'm going to listen to it.
I'm going to read the lyrics for you. Okay. So this is in 1939. America is extremely racist. We're still living in segregation, right? And lynchings are going on like at a crazy rate in the South. And so Billie Holiday, who was not particularly like an activist, like as you would think, you know, in marching all the time, but she took her art and used her art as a form of activism and wrote and sang these words. Southern trees bear a strange fruit, blood on the leaves and blood at the root. Black bodies swinging in the southern breeze, strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees. Pastoral scene of the gallant South, the bulging eyes and the twisted mouth, scent of magnolias, sweet and fresh, then the sudden smell of burning flesh. Here is fruit for the crows to pluck, for the rain to gather, for the wind to suck, for the sun to rot, for the trees to drop. Here is a strange and bitter crop. So what was she talking about here in this song? She was the strange fruit that was hanging from the trees was the black bodies that were being lynched. This song was talking about how Southerners seem to be addicted to consuming that strange fruit, right? Mm-hmm. Harry Anslinger being a racist, all the other races being racist, were mad at her. And she then became the target of his destruction. He was like, how dare you come and sing this song, Strange Fruit? in lament over the fallen bodies of your brothers and sisters. And she became his target. So Harry Anslinger goes in the Federal Bureau of Narcotics. Shortly after that Strange Fruit performance, they contact Billie and they tell her that she needs to stop singing the song. Billie didn't remember I told you she doesn't take no shit.
No, she I got that. She doesn't like being told what to do.
Do you think Billie stopped singing?
Probably not. Probably not.
Billie did not stop singing. Billie Holiday continued to sing the song Strange Fruit. And unfortunately, like I mentioned, she had a very tumultuous upbringing in life, which led her to substance abuse. She used heroin, she used marijuana, alcohol, and all the sorts of other drugs, which were very illegal. So Harry Anslinger sought to take her down for heroin. And he ended up getting this guy called Jimmy Fletcher. Jimmy Fletcher is an African-American who was working for the Federal Bureau of Narcotics as an agent, and his job was to go into communities of color, buy drugs from them, and bust them. So Jimmy goes, and his job is to fall in love with Lady Day. So he goes, is to get to know her, and he gets close to her, and by virtue of the closeness, ends up busting her. He shows up to her house, knocks on the door, slides the summon under her door, and Billie's like, don't let them come in. If they're gonna come in, they're gonna just strip search me, just come in and pat me down and let me go. But they open the door, and Billie Holiday strips down butt ass naked and begins to piss in front of all of them.
Wow.
She didn't take no shit. They arrested her.
Shit.
They arrested her. And that bitch ass Jimmy Fletcher was like, Harry Anslinger, I'll talk to him for you. Harry Anslinger doesn't give a fuck about your black ass, you idiot. I'm sorry. So she gets arrested, and she's pleading. She's saying, don't send me to jail. Send me to go get cleaned up. They sent her to a year and a day in prison. She was in like pigsties in a very deplorable manner. And they said she did not sing at all for that entire time. And when she came out of prison, they stripped her of her license to sing in cabarets that sold alcohol. So that's essentially most of those jazz clubs. They basically tried to kill her career. And, she wouldn't stop, and she kept rocking with it. And she ended up falling in love with this man named Louis McKay. The thing about Lady Day is she just did not know how to pick men. And a lot of her lovers beat the shit out of her and were very abusive. And they talked about Louis McKay in particular, how she would show up so beaten, they would have to tie up her ribs in order for her to go on stage and sing. And this man was also alleged to have been a pimp of hers. Yep. She had a rough life, and I think people took advantage of her sexually quite a bit because of her openness, That happens as a psychology of somebody who was abused at 9 years old. You see that the psychology, the pathology of what was pursued her whole life, putting herself in reckless positions, and all of that is a reflection of what occurred to her when she was really young. But not having psychologists who care about psychology, period, never mind the psychology of a traumatized Black woman in the 1930s. So they just labeled her promiscuous. They labeled her difficult, angry, and all these things, when in fact she was a traumatized woman, trying the best she could to numb the trauma with heroin, with alcohol, with whatever she could find when she wasn't singing, So I think it's important for us to realize that. And she realized she had a problem too, where she asked, send me to get help. But then instead of giving her help, they sent her into prison. And I also want to point out something. Harry Anslinger at the same time found out that Judy Garland was addicted to heroin. Do you know what he did to Judy Garland? He called the studio and said, you guys are working her too hard. She needs to go on vacation. He worked with Judy to try to get her off and get her clean. What's the difference between Judy Garland and my good old friend, sister, Billie Holiday? Is the color of their skin. The color. So Harry Anslinger was awful, awful, awful. So Louis McKay ended up snitching on her as well at some point, and she ended up getting arrested because of her own husband snitching on her. Um, I just wish somebody was there to tell her, girl, just pick better men.
Stop picking men for a while.
Stop picking men who don't give a fuck about you. But so let's see. So we talked about Jimmy Fletcher taking her out. She no longer can sing, and she still has a desire to sing. But despite having stripped her of her capacity to sing, Harry Anslinger was not done. He wanted her destroyed. So she couldn't sing in places where they were selling alcohol, but she could still sing in like hotels, and so she was still, living her life.
Mm-hmm.
So Harry Anslinger calls his friend George White. George White is literally the most awful human being you could ever think of in the entire universe. He worked for the FBI and was known for drugging women who did not show interest in him until they did. He strangled this Japanese man, saying that he was a spy, but then when they questioned him about it later, he said, I didn't even know whether he was really a spy. So George White knows that she's singing at this hotel, I think it was, or a restaurant. And he goes and I believe he plants drugs. I don't remember what drugs he planted in her room. And she gets arrested. And she actually beats this charge. Okay, she doesn't go to jail for that one. But she said that it was like the United States versus Billie Holiday. And it definitely felt like it was the United States versus Billie Holiday. The loneliness, the anxiety. Many of her friends said it was like one of the darkest periods of her life. And for what? Why was she the target? Because she decided to speak truth. And for me, I know as a Black woman who's always speaking about social justice, that's a fear that I have to overcome in my head. Every time I come here, I know that I'm a potential target, but I say, fuck it. Okay, the truth will live. So she gets out and she's living her life, but Billie had years of heavy drinking and drug use. So she was not very healthy. And at the age of 44, Billie is, I think she's like at a hotel, and she collapses. When she collapses, the ambulance, she gets taken to this hospital, and the officers go there while she's in the hospital bed and handcuff her there. And they claim that she had heroin in the hospital room. Mind you, when they brought Billie to the hospital, Billie was unconscious. She had collapsed. How would Billie have been able to take her heroin and throw it? And even they were talking about the positioning of the can where they thought the heroin, whatever. But at that time, Billie was using heroin heavily. She was addicted to heroin. She was drinking a lot. She had cirrhosis of the liver, bad heart, and so while she's in the hospital, she has to quit cold turkey. She had done that, quit cold turkey, her heroin, when she got popped the first time, but she was much younger and her body was hadn't been as damaged as it is. So Anslinger, he's back. In the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, they are holding her hostage. This is a sick woman. They're questioning her. They won't let her friends go see her. There are people protesting outside of the hospital. Let lady live. Let lady live. And so they finally allow a doctor to go in and see her. And the doctor prescribes her methadone. And so she starts coming back to herself. Mm-hmm. So she's on the methadone for 10 days. 10 days later, they get a call. Take Billie off the methadone. What happens if you take a person whose body is that ill, who has to go through withdrawal off methadone? They die. So they effectively killed Billie Holiday by removing her from the methadone. And that's how Harry Anslinger led to the death of our dear Lady Day, Billie Holiday. And it's a tragic story. She died with 70 cents in her bank account, and they said she had $53 strapped to her leg. She was penniless because she couldn't perform the way she was supposed to at the cabarets. She had the drug addiction, but nonetheless, despite the fact that she was going through so much personal turmoil, she still found a way to speak up for what she believed in the way that she knew how. Like she wrote the song Strange Fruit, and look what happened. She ended up paying for it with her life.
It's a good story.
Right. But, you know, shout out to Billie. Because all
her music is still powerful, and she's, you know, she's world renowned. What do we know about Billie Holiday's statistics from the almighty Wikipedia? She was a concert performer throughout the 1950s. 2 further sold out shows at Carnegie Hall.
Mm-hmm.
Some commercial success.
She was in movies, or a movie.
Inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame, 1973. Diana Ross played her in the movie about her life.
Which, again, I told you, take it with a grain of salt. But she said that, you know, when she wrote it with another writer. And she didn't even read the final product of her own autobiography.
What? I mean, that's a traumatic autobiography. I don't know if after having to go through it all once to the ghostwriter,
right,
have to go through it again. I'm just going to trust you did that right.
You did it. But the thing is, she was always around people who were taking advantage of her, which I learned that when somebody's a victim or a survivor, rather, of sexual assault, what happens is their limbic system gets rewired where they can't really identify what real danger is. Like where you would say, no, this is a dangerous situation, I'm not going. But somebody who has been through that would just not see it and end up in those situations, which is why you end up seeing sexual assault survivors going through that repetition.
Mm-hmm.
And then they don't trust themselves after that, which leads into deep depression. And it's just a horrible, horrible, horrible thing. And you could see that in the life of Billie Holiday.
Absolutely.
This was fun.
This was awesome. Really enjoyed it, and I learned something. So that's wonderful. I'm excited. This is so much better than the videos I made by myself. So much better. All right, Laury, you, Big Mama, stay high. Cheers.
Yeah.
And I'll talk to you soon.
Peace.